Some hauntings are easy to understand. One house, one ghost. One story repeated generation after generation. Prestbury doesn't fit that pattern. For centuries, people have reported seeing hooded monks, headless women, phantom horsemen, Roman soldiers, spectral children and shadowy figures walking its ancient lanes. None appear connected. None share the same history. So why do they all seem to gather here? Within paranormal research, there's a theory that certain locations may act as portals, places where the boundary between our world and whatever lies beyond becomes thin, allowing different apparitions from different times and perhaps different places to appear in the same location. There is no scientific evidence to prove such portals exist. Yet if the theory were ever true, few places in Britain would seem to fit it better than Prestbury, because this quiet Gloucestershire village isn't known for one ghost, it's known for dozens.
Introducing Taco Bell's new jalapeno citrus salsa with bright citrus, real red jalapenos, guajillo chiles. Usually, you add sauce to the food, but when the sauce is this good, the food is just there to get the sauce to your mouth. That rolled quesadilla, not a rolled quesadilla anymore. Now it's a sauce shovel. Taco Bell's jalapeno citrus salsa. Get it with any item on the Cantina chicken menu while it's here. At participating U.S. Taco Bell locations for a limited time only. While supplies last. Contact store for availability.
Your phone is your lifeline. Calling your kid to say goodnight, waiting on a job callback, or just sending a meme to your best friend when it's been that kind of day. Wherever life takes you, the Text Now app keeps you connected for free. Get a real phone number, unlimited talk and text, and 5G data for your favorite apps, all for $0 a month. No fixed contracts, no hidden fees, no panic when bills pile up, just phone service that's there when it matters most. Text Now. We've got your back. Download Text Now in your app store today. Wireless plans require the purchase of a SIM card. Visit textnow.com for terms and conditions.
Hello, I'm Sarah and welcome to the Whispering Woods Haunted episode. I'm on my own this week as Toby is on holiday with his dad. In this episode, we are going to Prestbury, which is a haunted village in England. Lots of stuff going on here. I'll get straight into it. Are you ready for the story? Long before Regency terraces of Cheltenham drew wealthy visitors from across Britain, before horse-drawn carriages carried fashionable guests to its spa waters, and before the town expanded into one of Gloucestershire's largest settlements, there was Prestbury. Today it's often described as a suburb of Cheltenham, but that modern description hides a far older story. For most of its existence, Prestbury was a village in its own right, nestled beneath the western slopes of the Cotswold Hills, where clear streams flowed down from the limestone escarpment and fertile farmland stretched towards the River Severn. It's a place where time seems reluctant to move on. Some cottages stand close to winding lanes that follow routes first laid out centuries ago. Ancient walls divide gardens that have belonged to the same plots of land since the Middle Ages. Mature yew trees cast deep shadows across churchyards, where generations of villagers have been buried beneath weathered gravestones, their inscriptions softened by centuries of wind and rain. Even in daylight, there is something undeniably old about Prestbury. Not simply historic, ancient. The village itself almost certainly existed before the Norman conquest. Its name is believed to derive from the Old English Prestbury, meaning the priest's fortified place or the priest's manor, suggesting that it had religious importance long before William the Conqueror's surveyors arrived to compile the Domesday Book in 1086. By the late 11th century, Prestbury was already an established settlement. Domesday records a sizable community with cultivated land, mills and woodland, reflecting a prosperous agricultural estate at a time when much of Gloucestershire remained sparsely populated. Over the following centuries, the village grew steadily rather than dramatically. Unlike neighbouring Cheltenham, whose fortunes transformed almost overnight after mineral springs attracted Georgian society, Prestbury changed slowly. Farmers continued to work the surrounding fields. Craftsmen built homes from the honey-coloured Cotswold stone found beneath their feet. Families remained in the parish for generations, their lives measured not by rapid change, but by the steady rhythm of harvests, church festivals, and the passing of the seasons. Perhaps that continuity is one reason why so many stories survived. Ghost stories often disappear as communities change, families move away, old houses are demolished. Local traditions fade with each new generation. Prestbury never experienced that complete break with its past. Long before paranormal investigators arrived carrying cameras and recording equipment, local people already knew which lanes were best avoided after dark. They knew where unexplained footsteps had been heard. They knew which stretches of road seemed strangely deserted, despite the feeling that someone was walking right behind them. They knew which cottage windows had revealed figures that should not have been standing inside. Most of all, they knew the church. Rising above the rooftops at the heart of the village stands St. Mary's Church, its tower visible from almost every direction as roads converge towards the old centre of Prestbury. Parts of the building date back to the 12th century, although there is every reason to believe an even earlier Saxon church occupied the same ground, long before the Norman stonework was raised. For almost 1,000 years, weddings have been celebrated there, children baptised, funerals held, bells rung in celebration and mourning. Few places in the village have witnessed more of human life than the churchyard that surrounds it. Perhaps it's no surprise that many of the Prestbury ghost stories begin there. Not all of them, but most of them. Unlike many supposedly haunted villages that revolve around a single tragic murder or one notorious building, Prestbury stories refuse to stay in one place. The apparitions wander. Some follow ancient roads. Others cross open fields before disappearing into woodland. Several appear beside streams. Others emerge from houses where no recorded tragedy ever occurred. Over time, the number of reported hauntings became so large that visitors began arriving, not because they had experienced anything themselves, but simply because they had heard whispers about the village. Those whispers would eventually spread far beyond Gloucestershire. Newspapers reported them. Television crews arrived, hoping to witness something extraordinary. Yet long before Prestbury became famous, there was one figure whose silent appearance would define the village's supernatural reputation more than any other. A solitary man dressed entirely in black, a figure who never spoke, who walked the same route again and again, and who, according to countless witnesses, simply vanished before their eyes. By the middle of the 20th century, Prestbury had acquired an unusual reputation. There had always been villages associated with a single ghost, a murdered lady seen upon the staircase, a phantom coach that appeared on stormy nights, perhaps the occasional monk drifting through the ruins of a dissolved monastery. Prestbury was different. Here nobody could agree how many ghosts there actually were. Some writers counted a dozen, others claimed more than 20. By the time the paranormal guidebooks began appearing in the 1970s and 80s, the total had risen again, with some authors confidently declaring that more than 30 separate apparitions had been recorded within the village. Whether those numbers were accurate hardly seemed to matter. The reputation had taken over. Visitors arrived expecting to experience something. Ghost hunters wandered the lanes after sunset, carrying cameras, tape recorders and torches. Local newspapers occasionally revisited the village whenever another alleged sighting was reported, while national magazines repeated the now familiar claim that Prestbury was Britain's most haunted village. Yet despite the publicity, something curious happened. The stories refused to become uniform. Normally, legends evolve until everyone repeats the same version. Details become polished, contradictions disappear. Prestbury never quite settled. One witness described a figure wearing heavy robes. Another insisted the clothing resembled that of an 18th century gentleman. Some spoke of monks, others of soldiers. Some ghosts appeared only at particular times of year. Others were said to walk throughout every season. One person might see a silent procession crossing a field, where another, standing only yards away, experienced nothing at all. It was almost as though the village had become a collection of separate hauntings, each existing independently of the others. Some were tied to buildings, some followed roads. Others seemed to have no obvious connection with history whatsoever. Even local people differed in what they believed. There were those who dismissed every story as folklore. Others insisted that something undeniably strange lingered around St. Mary's Church after dark. Some residents quietly admitted they preferred not to walk certain routes alone at night. Not because they expected to see a ghost, but because there was an unmistakable feeling that somebody else was sharing the space with them. Unlike many famous haunted locations, Prestbury never relied upon dramatic seances or notorious paranormal investigations to build its reputation. Instead, the stories accumulated gradually. One witness became 2, 2 became 10, 10 became folklore. Eventually, the hauntings themselves became part of the village's identity. Visitors arriving for the first time often found themselves asking the same question: where should we begin? Locals usually gave the same answer: the church. Not because every ghost was seen there, far from it, but because from the church, almost every one of Prestbury's legends seemed to spread outward like the branches of an ancient tree. Ancient pathways led towards the surrounding fields. Old roads disappeared into neighbouring hamlets. Stone cottages overlooked narrow lanes where unexplained figures had been reported for generations. And somewhere among those lanes, according to countless witnesses, a solitary figure dressed entirely in black continued to follow the same silent route he had apparently walked for centuries. Nobody knew precisely who he had been. Nobody knew where he was going. Most remarkably of all, nobody seemed able to stop him. Witnesses watched him approach, watched him pass, then watched him disappear, as though the night itself had quietly closed behind him. Whatever else people believed about Prestbury, almost everyone agreed on one thing. If there was a ghost that belonged to the village, it was him. There is a curious pattern that appears again and again in accounts from Prestbury. Very few witnesses set out looking for ghosts. Unlike modern paranormal investigators carrying cameras and thermal imaging equipment, most of those who reported strange encounters were simply walking home. Some had been visiting neighbours, others had finished work. Several had attended evening services at St. Mary's Church before setting off through the village beneath the yellow glow of street lamps. Nothing unusual happened at first. Prestbury, particularly during winter, becomes remarkably quiet after dark. The roads carry light traffic. The surrounding Cotswold Hills absorb much of the distant sound. And even today, there are moments when the village seems strangely detached from the modern world. It's in that silence that many of the stories begin. The first sensation is rarely visual. Instead, people speak of becoming unexpectedly aware that they are no longer alone. Footsteps, sometimes slow, sometimes matching their own pace, occasionally drawing closer. A witness would stop. The footsteps stopped. Walking again produced the same result. Behind them, another pair of footsteps seemed to answer every movement they made. Instinctively, they'd turn. Nothing. No pedestrian or cyclist, no animal crossing the road. Only an empty lane stretching away beneath pools of amber light. Many continued walking, dismissing the experience as imagination. Yet several later admitted that they hurried home. Not because they'd seen anything, but because they'd become convinced that something unseen was keeping pace beside them. Others reported a different feeling. They became aware of somebody standing nearby, not close enough to touch, not even close enough to identify, simply present. The sensation lingered for several seconds before disappearing as suddenly as it had arrived. There were no voices or threatening movements, only an overwhelming certainty that another presence occupied the darkness. Even visitors unfamiliar with Prestbury occasionally described something similar. Without knowing the village's reputation, they later admitted there were places where they'd experienced an inexplicable reluctance to continue walking. Several old lanes seemed particularly uncomfortable after sunset. The churchyard could feel strangely oppressive. The roads leading away towards the surrounding fields often appeared darker than they should, even beneath clear skies. Whether these impressions were psychological or something stranger has remained impossible to determine. Yet remarkably similar descriptions continued appearing over many decades. An overwhelming feeling that somebody else shared the road. Then, every so often, witnesses looked up. This time there really was someone there. Standing only a short distance, silent, completely still, watching. And like the vague sensation described by so many others, this figure possessed clear shape and detail. Dark robes, a hood, a slow, deliberate manner that seemed untouched by the passing centuries. Once seen, he became impossible to mistake for anyone else. Long before books declared Prestbury Britain's most haunted village, residents already knew him. They called him the Black Abbot. At first glance, the Black Abbot presents an obvious problem. If the witnesses are truly seeing the ghost of an abbot, where exactly did he come from? Unlike Glastonbury, Prestbury was never dominated by the ruins of a vast medieval monastery. Instead, Prestbury's religious heart has always been St. Mary's Church. The church that stands today is largely Norman, its oldest surviving stonework dating from the 12th century, although historians believe an earlier Saxon church almost certainly occupied the same ground. During the Middle Ages, Prestbury was one of the wealthiest parishes in Gloucestershire. Its lands extended across a remarkably large area, with income flowing from farms, mills, and surrounding settlements. The parish attracted influential churchmen, many of whom never lived permanently within the village itself, but exercised authority over its estates from elsewhere. The authority changed hands repeatedly over the centuries: bishops, canons, priests. It was governed by religious hierarchy, where black robes, long processions, and solemn ritual formed part of everyday life. To medieval villagers, the sight of a robed clergyman walking the lanes would have been entirely unremarkable. Death, however, has a habit of transforming ordinary memories into extraordinary legends. As centuries passed, names disappeared while images remained. A black-robed churchman became simply the Black Monk. The Black Monk became the Black Abbot. The Black Abbot hardly changes at all. He does not suddenly become violent. He never begins to speak. No Victorian writer transformed him into a blood-soaked spectre, or invented dramatic chains rattling through the churchyard. He simply continues to walk, always silent, always alone, always apparently heading somewhere. And he is not alone, because while visitors arrive hoping to catch sight of the Black Abbot, many leave talking about someone else entirely. A woman, silent, headless, seen gliding through the darkness where the old village lanes meet the churchyard. And unlike the Black Abbot, her story may begin with blood. Witnesses have described a female figure dressed in pale clothing, moving silently through the lanes close to St. Mary's Church. She never acknowledges those who see her. Instead, she glides through the darkness before disappearing. Only afterwards do some witnesses realise something is terribly wrong. She has no head. Unlike the Black Abbot, seen only for a few moments before fading into the night, for generations the story has remained one of Prestbury's most enduring mysteries. But not every ghost in Prestbury walks alone. For centuries, witnesses have reported hearing horses before seeing them. The sound of hooves echoes along quiet roads, growing steadily louder until phantom riders appear, only to vanish moments later without leaving a trace. Some accounts describe a lone horseman. Others speak of several riders travelling together, as though following an ancient route. Like so many of Prestbury's hauntings, the encounters are brief. The riders simply pass through the darkness before disappearing as suddenly as they arrived. By now it becomes clear that Prestbury's reputation was never built upon a single haunting. Over the years, villagers have spoken of shadowy children near the churchyard, spectral dogs crossing quiet lanes, Roman soldiers glimpsed where no ancient road survives, and figures standing silently in cottage windows before disappearing when approached. Each story is different. Some may be folklore, others may be misunderstandings. Yet together they create something unusual. A village where almost every road seemed capable of producing another ghost story. Now, I don't know if in the paranormal world others say that this is like a portal area, but that's what it sounds like to me. All sorts of ghosties going on in the village, and I just imagine it as this kind of portal where they're popping in and popping out. Well, that's it for me today. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you again tomorrow for the main episode. Take care, everyone.
Managing healthcare payments shouldn't get in the way of patient care, but fragmented systems create costly delays and add unnecessary friction. Zealous is here to help. We simplify healthcare's financial complexity by connecting every step of the financial journey for payers, providers, and members. That way, everyone can focus on what matters most. Because when the financial experience works, care doesn't just happen, it flows. Learn more at zealous.com.
The stories told on the Whispering Woods are inspired by historical records, witness reports, and local folklore. While every effort is made to research and represent events accurately, some details, names, and locations may differ from official accounts or have been changed out of respect for those involved. These episodes are created for storytelling and entertainment purposes and should not be considered definitive fact or investigative journalism.